Happy New Year from Montana Nonprofit Association. My name is Michael Hale, and I will be working with you to come up with some of the general ledger reports and payroll reports that you might need for your CARES funding reports that are due at the end of the month. A couple of overview questions. Remember, your general ledger reports are supposed to provide the transactional detail that match the dollar for dollar spending that you are claiming in your final report. Now, those reports will aggregate a lot of those costs into particular buckets, but you still have to provide all of the transactional minutia to show where every dollar was spent. If you did that by having a classification system that was really smart ahead of time, if you put it in its own bank account, that makes reporting so much easier because every transaction would have just reduced those dollars. But if you didn't, I'm going to show you a few tricks that you might use to at least narrow the scope of your general ledger report and know that you're going to have a little bit of legwork to do. I'm actually going to begin with the payroll reports for what you might be using. Remember, payroll costs are definitely high dollar expenses, and you want to include those if you included that in your grant program. And just like the Payroll Protection Act, those loans, you had to exclude certain federal taxes. And so when you're reporting those, you have to report all of your payroll, get that total. What are your payroll taxes? Let's exclude those. So total costs less the taxes you're excluding, that's going to be the payroll cost that you're going to actually report. But you have to provide the data for both of those. So I'm going to start a screen share here and show you in QuickBooks Online what that would look like for you. So in the QuickBooks module, under payroll, if you have that module, in compliance, so you can get that to a couple different ways, either the top or the sidebar. If you scroll down about halfway, there's the Paycheck Protection Program. You're going to click that second link to go to the reports. And in this box, there are two. You've got your payroll cost report that's going to show you your entire payroll. And then you have the payroll tax report, which will help identify the taxes that need to be excluded. They're separated out. Now, depending on how your accountants or your accounting software, you may have set those up differently than we did. And I'm definitely not going to show you our employees' data. So I'm not going to pull those reports, but just know that those would be possibly two tabs in an Excel file: total costs, payroll costs, and then subtract out the two, make a little footnote for this is what we're claiming. Okay, so there's that part. For general ledger, you're going to go under reports. I like to just type it in the box, general ledger, select that report, and then there's going to be a few things that I want to point out. Okay, first, make sure you set the dates to when you are inside of the grant program from when you were actually reporting on. So if you ran the program from April to December 30th, make sure you change the dates to reflect those in 2020. That's the first thing to troubleshoot. And then hit report, run that report. Now, if you did it by classes, kudos to you. Just remember that you can customize, and you're going to filter that by saying, hey, I want to include only the classes for the grant programs that I've assigned those transactions to. Because otherwise, you're going to get the entire general ledger for everything that your business has done. And we don't want to include everything if we can avoid it. So if you were to do that, you would choose whatever grant program that you were working in, and then check the box. It will pull the report for you, hit run report, and then you're going to be good. Okay, that will be able to be exported to Excel or to a PDF, and that will be ready for submission. If, however, you did not set up those classes ahead of time, it's not the end of the world. What I would suggest is to think through, where did you put most of your expenses? Rather than pulling everything, let's be smart. So I would choose the distribution account and then choose from your chart of accounts where you might have put things. Perhaps you did have some travel that was required. Pull the travel account. Maybe you had some consultants or some contracted services. Pull those accounts. Obviously, you're going to have some supplies. Pull that account. But don't include everything that would be in your chart of accounts, because otherwise you're going to have a full list of every single transaction. For example, if you've already pulled the payroll reports, don't include the payroll distribution accounts because you've already pulled those, you'll need those again. So pull the ones, narrow your scope, and then when you run that report, let's pretend like I did, then you're going to be ready to export And I would export that to Excel, because then you're going to have the extra work of going line by line and saying, this was one that was accurate for the grant program, and this one I needed to delete out. It's going to be a little bit cumbersome. It's going to mess up with the auto totals that were reported. So you'll need to delete those and resum. I would also highly recommend that you include a third column, third, fourth, fifth, whatever column is last, and then assign it a class based on the grant programs that you're reporting on. And then what you can do is filter those out, cut, paste into a new tab, and make it very clean for reporting to say, this is what we had in our educational grant program. This is what we had in our food assistance program. Whatever the program was that you're reporting on, those costs are particular to that bucket. I hope that helps. It's going to have a little bit of nuance if you did not create that classification system beforehand, but rather than trying to do it in your accounting software after the fact, just do it in your reporting and make sure that you're only counting those expenses once. So if you've claimed that expense for a different grant program, you're not allowed to count it for your CARES relief funding somewhere else. So for example, say you had a funder, Montana Community Foundation, they gave you a grant. If you've expensed part of that to Montana Community Foundation, you're not allowed to double dip and then also count it for your CARES relief funding reporting. So remember, you can only expense it once to a particular program. And you may need to work with your accountant if you need to go back and check with those funders to say, hey, we really need to use these expenses for CARES relief. Would it be okay if we bookmark this or carried it into next year to use it later, so that way we can account for it in this particular program? Again, you'll need to check with your funders and your accountant for making sure that you're in compliance with whatever donor rules for the grants that you've already received. So I hope that helps. Remember, count your payroll, but exclude your payroll costs. You need to show both of those reports and then, do the difference. And then your general ledger report needs to include all of the transactional details. Count it once and only once for the grant programs for which that you are reporting in your CARES relief funds. So I hope that helps. If you have questions, don't forget that you can reach out to us. We have a help desk on our website, montananonprofit.org, mtnonprofit.org. Have a great day.